Okay.
I don't have permission to share my screen.
Yeah, sharing is not turned on. That might be a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
What I can do is I can share as a PDF to you, Susie, if you're able to quickly.
I think the ideal is, Susie, if you hover over Harry and Steph and make them co-host, then they'll be able to.
That's the one, isn't it? Make co-host.
Steph Kele is the co-host.
Wonderful.
Is that working?
Yeah, we should be
Hey.
good to go.
Cool.
Okay, perfect. You can see my deck, can't you? Just to make sure that, perfect.
We can.
Thanks, Steph.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you. It's really nice to be back at the BIMA Roundtable with Harry. At the last sustainability session I shared a bit about the work we've been doing with our clients on sustainability audits, really looking at where they are now, what impact they're making, and how we can help them set more meaningful goals. And the response I found was really positive, a lot of curiosity, and a few people had asked if we'd be willing to come back for today's session to delve a little bit more deeper on the topic. Sorry. So at Manifesto, our approach to sustainability really ties back, in my eyes, to two of our core pillars. No planet, no nothing, and don't just say it, do it. And for us, that means recognizing that everything we create ultimately depends on the health of our planet, and the good intentions only really count if they lead to real action. Sustainability isn't something that we're seeing as a separate initiative. It's something that we really try to weave through every project, every partnership, and every decision that we make. So like our own manifesto itself, our approach is designed to evolve, and the world is changing fast, and so are the challenges and the opportunities that we face. So we're always learning, always testing and adapting from that. So today, Harry and I are going to share with you the thinking that has come to life through our sustainability audits, what's worked well, what's been challenging, and how it all connects to that wider movement across the sector. And hopefully it will spark a few ideas or new conversations, because again, linking to our manifesto, like imagine if we're doing it all together and the power that we can have from that.
So thanks, Steph. So we're as a mission-led, purposeful agency, we're very lucky that our clients we're already thinking about sustainability probably earlier than some other sectors, and it was becoming increasingly on the agenda that we needed an approach to this, and to develop a method of auditing and understanding the digital sustainability and of our clients' software. So we have developed a sustainability audit, and you can see the outline of the approach here. So it's built around different phases. That the first is where we will look at the architecture and the processes that are of the software and that support it. We'll map it and make sure that we understand the scope and how it works. We'll then go into the measurement phase. So that's where we estimate the emissions from energy usage of the hardware. That's the data center, the network where we transfer data between systems and also people's devices. And we use a couple of tools for that. We use Lighthouse for looking at the people's devices usage, and we would use data from systems like Cloudflare for measuring the understanding like kind of the web traffic and the transfer across the network. The other pillar of measurement is looking at the servers, and again the people's devices connected directly to the servers, and we use an API called Boa Vista, where they have done a sort of academic model of the different cloud platforms, which means that once we get information about how the software is hosted. We can use that to get an understanding of its environmental footprint. We then turn that information into a big list of recommendations for actions that will have a meaningful reduction in emissions. And then we work with the client to prioritize those recommendations. And the different sort of facets for those prioritizations will be around the emissions, the different costs associated with the work, the complexity and skills needed, how long it might take, and then impact on any other projects. That then allows us to create a fully realized roadmap with properly quantifiable impacts that we can then work with the client to realize over time. We would split the roadmap into actions that are able to be taken to the now, then soon. So those are things where a little bit of work might be required to get there, and then future things, more long-term, big-ticket items. And then I think, Steph, you're going to talk about,
Yeah, thank you. So once the audit is complete, we have like several approaches and actions that need to take place that we provide. So we provide the full report, which is full of all of the technical recommendations. This is really helpful, especially when sharing internally across stakeholders and being able to drill down and get your teeth stuck into some of that meaty information. Within the backlog, we provide a summary of the prioritization and the actions, all aimed to reduce that emission. So how we categorize it is what needs to happen now, what needs to happen soon, and then we also categorize the importance level of it amongst with whether it's going to be Manifesto, our client to be taking on the responsibilities, or a blended approach where we'll both tackle it together. And then finally, we have the backlog where all the information is pulled up. Sorry. So it's really easy for ourselves or your teams to be able to get straight into action and kickstart with actually taking on those actions. So I wanted to talk about, I've got 2 case studies for recent sustainability audits that we've completed. The first one is London Transport Museum. They were really looking to understand what their website's carbon footprint is. Naturally, they've got connection to a lot of transport that has its own physical impact, but they really wanted to focus on the digital aspect of it and really look to get an understanding about how they're comparing across the sector. So we carried out this work, and essentially they've given some really easy actions that they can take forward to have a really positive impact to reduce that sustainability impact. Something that London Transport Museum are really keen to do is to continue to do this on a yearly approach so that they continue to benchmark and measure and show and demonstrate the impact that they're having, which is really fantastic. And then with Kew Gardens, I know Chandeep, you highlighted Kew Gardens work. This is something that's been really positive with Kew. They've got a huge focus to be carbon neutral to 2030, all in line with their sustainability strategy. And there was this big gap to identify like what they could do now, what they could do in the future to continue to drive that down. So within it, we are really able to identify some cost saving efficiencies. We were able to increase their page load times, optimize their content, and again, align with their strategy of becoming carbon neutral for 2030.
Thanks, Steph. So you can see here the highlight numbers from our audit of Kew Gardens. So the total environmental impact we measured at 1.688 tonnes of CO2 equivalent. That is an interesting number, but it's hard to know what that means in real terms. So for each of our audits, we will provide a number which is the equivalent of the the environmental impact of making a cup of tea with milk. It does make quite a big difference adding the milk, believe it or not. So that equates to 79,398 cups of tea over a year for the Kew Gardens website. We also ask our clients to provide a sort of metric that's more meaningful for them. In Kew Gardens' case, they wanted it related to trees, so it is also the equivalent of 169 native broadleaf trees. If you were to plant 169 native broadleaf trees, the website would be essentially carbon neutral over a year. Our impacts, we estimated, would create a reduction in 75% of their global warming potential if they did everything, which is around about average based on our audits. There's usually a significant reduction available even on reasonably well optimized sites, which Kew's is. Now, if we go on to the next slide, I can show you some of the numbers. So there's that number, 1.688 tons CO2 equivalent, but that equates to 9,449 kilowatt hours of energy used over a year. Then there's the abiotic depletion potential, which is complicated, but it is the equivalent mineral resources required and for the creation of the hardware required to serve the site up. And you can see in the pie chart in the top right hand corner the breakdown of the where that environmental impact is coming from. So approximately half of it is from the web traffic, so that's all the things being served from the website that aren't digital assets like images or other files. So that's JavaScript, CSS, the HTML itself, and other things like that. And approximately a third is the digital assets. So those are images, PDFs, that kind of thing. Then there's they're using two different video platforms, Vimeo and YouTube. So you can see that account equates to actually a relatively small amount of their impact. And then approximately a fifth is down to their web servers. If we go on to the next slide, we can break that down some more. So you can see here that this is it's just 0.8 tons of CO2 over a year for that web traffic, with about 4,000 kilowatt hours to serve up 70 terabytes of data. And then it was 46.7 for the digital assets, with 2,500 kilowatt hours and about half a ton for the digital assets. Then on the next slide, you can see here the breakdown for the video. So like I said, they're using two video platforms. And the way we calculate this is that we have a number of grams of CO2 per hour of play for the different platforms. And you can see here that actually there's a significant difference in that figure for YouTube and Vimeo. YouTube is significantly more sustainable a platform than Vimeo, based on our research. And when we started this work, we assumed video would have a much larger environmental impact, but actually it turns out it is a relatively insignificant portion of the overall impact. Then you can see here the web servers impact. So that's around about or just 0.295 tons, and that's for 3 Drupal environments hosted on Acquia. On their enterprise plan, we had to work with Acquia to work out how to do this measurement. It wasn't something that they were able to do initially, so we had to work with them and then AWS to work out how to do this. So we've now sort of unlocked that capability in Acquia for them and their other clients as well, which is a really nice bonus of this work. And then if we go on to the next slide, you can see that we use a pretty simple impact rating method that's from very high to low. That depends on the potential reduction for each of those impacts. That enables us and our clients a very sort of quick and reliable way of identifying what the different impacts are. And we have a policy of only quantifying impacts where there is a reliable method for doing so. There's lots of different people out there saying there's lots of different methods for measuring these things. Some are some don't bear up to scrutiny particularly well, so we try and avoid those, and we'll use estimates of impact otherwise to try and avoid ruining the overall measurements. If we go on to the next slide, we can bring sort of some of our insights together of what we've learned. So here you can see the various actions that we've recommended for these roadmaps. These are ones that are common to most of the roadmaps, and we split them into, as Steph mentioned earlier, those that we would do for the client, those that the client would have to be responsible for doing, and then those that we would work on together. I've marked here whether those are things that are quantifiable and can be benchmarked in the future, and things that aren't feasible to be quantifiable, or just there is no the method of doing that. There's some pretty obvious things like optimizing images and improving caching, but there's also some perhaps less obvious things around UX, where deferring the loading of assets or making them load on demand. Also using more modern technologies like Next.js, or using container-based hosting. But yeah, these are all things that we've recommended in the past, and our clients have put in place, and are realizing a reduction in environmental impact. We go on to the next slide. I've got two big takeaways to share that we've learned the hard way. One is that meaningful measurements are really hard. There's no consistent best practice out there. There are emerging standards, but they're not being used consistently. The big cloud platforms have their own way of measuring things, which means it's impossible to make comparisons between them. And the figures provided by software vendors are often, like I say, don't bear up to scrutiny. So it is difficult to do this work. So you have to rely on your own. Methods for doing that through our judgment and experience. Yeah. This makes meaningful benchmarks of the impact in the future difficult. So we're on that sort of constant journey of improving that with our clients. And then the other one is communicating the impact to the organizations, and to beyond is difficult. Expectation management is is important. Some things are more quantifiable than others, like I said earlier, and it is hard. Like, I guess an example is that it's hard to quantify the precise impact of recycling a plastic bottle, yet we know it's better for the environment than binning it. Sometimes an impact might not seem as large as you think, but if you spread that out across the entire web, it will make a massive impact if we all think more sustainably. It's also come as a surprise to our clients how small the digital, the environmental impact of their digital work is compared with other areas of the business. So setting expectations initially is important around that. And it's also very important to make sure that the evidence you provide is accurate and where it can be, and to allow it to be benchmarked in the future. That's why we avoid taking measurements or using broad estimates of numbers where we don't think they'll stand up to scrutiny. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And just to see if you have any immediate questions from what we've presented.
Thanks, Harry and Steph. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Really
The last point was around scrutiny. So I just wonder if there are more specific examples you can give over the broader thingy bobs that you mentioned.
Yeah, so one bone of contention, I suppose, is that the accuracy or of being able to measure the server side of things very much depends on which hosting platform our clients are using for their software. Some are much more forthcoming than others, and some will provide numbers and be very forthcoming with numbers, but when you dig into actually where they come from or how they've done those measurements, it means that they're not essentially usable for our purposes. They're either based on wishful thinking, or they're based on a very optimistic reading of their environmental footprint, which is maybe based more on commercial thinking than it is on reality. So we need to be very mindful of that. And most of the web is hosted on one of the big three cloud platforms, and they are very different in the way that they approach sustainability. Some are more sustainable than others. I can tell you that Google Cloud Platform's the most sustainable in our experience, and then Azure, and then AWS in that order. But they're also not being designed around sustainability, and they're not geared up to measure these things or quantify it at all, really. So you have to do a bit of reverse engineering, which is where the organizations like BioVista come into play. So we've had to rely also we need to do a holistic measurement of the whole architecture. You need to have consistent methodology across the whole architecture. So we need to be able to do the measurements really ourselves, and using an algorithm that we understand and can rely on.
Great. I've got another. Go on.
Can I just ask if we are able to stop the recording for the questions,
Yes.
just for
Yeah,
comfort
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
no.
Fine.
Good.
We'll